we could not send the driver home until the boss says we can send him home, or even close to home. For example, he lives in St. Louis. You can't send him to Texas from Wisconsin because he's gonna go by home. And for some reason, only known to him, he doesn't want him to go that route. You can keep him something that goes to Georgia, for example, goes somewhere else and keep him south and just not close to home until he says that. And even though driver gets calls me every day, hey, bro, find me a load home, find me a load home, find me a load home. He's not gonna get a load home until boss says yes. And they text me, they call me, they start basically threatening they're gonna leave the truck and leave the company altogether.
Hi, welcome to Never Stop Trucking. We have Emra with us again as a guest, and we want to talk about some challenges dispatcher is facing, and especially from working abroad. And just wanted to chat a little bit with him. So, Emra, what attracted you to the trucking business?
It was kind of a thing because you're gonna work on a computer. I like computers. I like working on them, and that actually attracted me the most. So I knew I could, for example, find some things that can make my work easier, like I did with the click to dial feature, for example. Not many people know about that, and there's like many more of them. I'll record some videos about that on my channel. But that's kind of a main point that attracted me. I like trucks. I like vehicles in general. Anything that moves on wheels. So
Okay. Well, but did you have any experience prior to when you started working as a dispatcher? Did you know anything about trucks? I mean, why you're a young guy that knows a lot about computers, knows English. So why trucking?
I actually didn't know anything when I started. I literally did not know what dispatching means. I didn't know. Um, I knew what truck is. I just saw trucks. I used to work at a company. I used to unload trucks before, and containers that go overseas, they just ship them to us. They leave sometimes. They leave a whole container with us for a day or two, and we have time to unload it. I used to do basically. I used to unload a whole container myself before, so that's the part of trucks that I knew. And my grandpa was truck driver, so he was always talking about trucks. He was showing me pictures of the trucks that he used to drive and all of that. So I felt in love with that, but I literally did not know anything about dispatching when I started.
So did he go over the road, or did he stay local in the country?
He was going over the road. He was driving all throughout all Europe, Germany, France, even Russia. Uh, so he was going everywhere basically. He was he had stories about trucking that I found funny. He used to go to deliver peppers and cucumbers, and when he gets to deliver, it's not like in United States. Actually, it was not like that. Maybe it is today. I'm not sure, but when he used to get there, he needs to leave his truck for 2 or 3 days until they get him unloaded. And so basically, he has no place to sleep. Those trucks were not like sleeper cabins and things like that. So people that unload him, they usually offer him where to sleep and stay until the next day or the day after that. So uh, then people at those times, they didn't like. Today, almost everybody speaks English. You can understand what everybody wants to say, even if you're not from the same country. But in those days, it was not like that. He could barely uh, kind of communicate with anybody. He had to use his hands, his gestures, and all of that just to
Show
find a
pictures
way
or
to.
something like visually.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a different time, and those stories are nice.
Yeah. So those are some of the challenges that drivers still face in Europe, because the countries are so small, and you can drive for a couple of hundred of miles, and then you're going to a different country and where people speak different language. And a lot of drivers who go to a certain country, they have to learn the basics of that language just to be able to communicate. But like you said, with the internet nowadays, a lot of people speak English or maybe German uh,
Yep.
in Europe. And my uncle also, he still drives a truck. He drove for he's been driving for a very long time, and he drove a lot of different kinds of equipment. He drove a bus. Interestingly enough, when I was in high school, he was driving the school bus, and
Yeah.
I was actually on the bus that he was driving, and I always go to the front and talk to him, and he
Oh
was,
wow.
yeah, he's funny, like always making jokes, and very communicative. And now he drives, goes to like Turkey, used to go to Italy and Germany, like you said, all over. But then they have those the customs are one of the biggest
Yeah.
challenges over there, because you have to go through customs, and a lot of companies over there will here in United States, when you speak to drivers, you can see that some companies are taking advantage of drivers, but over there it's much more difficult, as far as the paying goes and their time. So I understand the issues that they have, and they also had
Mhm.
the ELDs. They call it different over there. They had it for a long time, and
Yeah.
here it just started a few years ago. So what when you started was working as a dispatcher, how did you adapt to um, different kind of rules, not just the language, because you have to speak in English when you book loads and speak to truck drivers and brokers, but also the way of doing business in United States as opposed to Europe or Eastern Europe. How can you adapt? Was that a shock?
The weirdest thing the weirdest thing was the negotiation for loads. That was like I couldn't wrap my head around that. So because when I started working, I didn't know anything about that. So my coworkers used to help me and to show me and explain stuff to me. Uh, but once they said basically you need to post a truck and search for a load, then when you find the load, you have to call it. Then when you call it, you have to negotiate the rate. That was insane. I couldn't believe that actually existed in the United States. Trucking is like one of the biggest sectors in USA, and every single load that you want to book, you need to negotiate for. I never heard of that before, so it was kind of weird, and it's not like it would be much easier. That's what I anticipated. Basically, you sit on there, you post a truck, search for a load, then you see how much they're paying for that certain lane. Then you call it, you either book it or you leave it. You just do not negotiate. Like it doesn't sound professional when you have to negotiate for something. Like you can't go to Walmart and negotiate the price for bread for something else. So that didn't make any sense to me. But that's how it is. So I had to adopt that. But since in Europe it's not like that, usually there is some negotiation as well, but there's usually like contract rates and you take or you leave. Basically, they're already paying well enough, and if there is some negotiation, it's not much. It's not like $100 or $200 on every single load. You just basically sign up a contract that you're doing, for example, France to Germany or France to Spain, and you're going back and forth like for a month or for a year, depends on the contract. There's that thing in USA as well, but I don't see that much.
Yeah, it's kind of like a big flea market, when you
Yeah,
think about it. I
exactly.
think part of the reason for that is because there are brokers involved. In Europe, I don't know that an industry like that exists. Usually, the rates are and the contracts are set between the trucking company and the shippers.
Mhm.
Here we have the brokers, and basically that's why you can negotiate, and that's why you should negotiate, because they are the middleman, and they, when they work with their shippers, they have contracts and they have
Yeah,
set rates. Sometimes the shippers may adjust their rates based on the market conditions or on other factors, but usually it's a set rate, and they are paying that set rate. But when they try to find someone who's going to transport that, the carrier knows that the broker has some leeway and they have some room to
Yeah,
negotiate. That's why they try, and the broker wants to make as much money as they can as their commission,
yeah,
and you're trying to tap into that. So
yeah,
that's why there has to be, the markets, the way they're set up, it makes you have to negotiate. So do you think?
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the market, the way it's set up now, you have to negotiate. But I believe that this is the this is not how it was always. It's not like since the trucking started like 200-300 years ago, it was not like this always. You did not have to negotiate before, I believe. I think I found something on Google that actually negotiation and even like DAT thing that you call for loads and negotiate and all of that started after the truckers union kind of broke. I'm not sure. I don't even know what the truckers union is. But after collapse of truckers union, I read something that actually began uh, evolving into the market situation that we have today, basically going up and down, always changing, always negotiation.
I will look into that. That's very interesting. I mean, we are probably just too young to know about that, what happened back then. But it
Yeah,
did evolve, the trucking industry. It did evolve over time, because the way of communication, and then when internet started, everything changed. And it used to be like, maybe younger generations don't understand how that worked, or how it is. They didn't experience it firsthand. But when you're when I started driving over the road in 2005, 6, I think, most people didn't have cell phones here.
yeah,
And even if they had them, they were prepaid. You had limits on your text messages, limits on your minutes. Sometimes, like, you would get to a spot here, you didn't have any signal at all. But even before that, the drivers would have to go to a payphone
yeah,
in order to call their office, or go to the shippers or receivers phone number, and then call them, and ask, hey, what's next? And then at that time, there is no way for brokers to function in that way, like
yeah,
resell, post and load publicly. So then when cell phones started, everyone started using those. But then still, when dispatchers were dispatching the truck drivers, they would have to manually type in the address and all that. And then we started with taking pictures and emailing rate confirmations and such. So everything involved. And then, I believe that when the internet era started, that's when the brokers became relevant, and now
yeah,
we kind of have to use them.
yeah. I heard stories from my coworkers that used to work with me. Uh, they they used to work as dispatchers. Actually, one of them had a trucking company a long time ago. When basically drivers did not have cell phones, like you already said, and you can't send him text message with basically addresses and all of that. So he had to stop on a truck stop. He did not have a cell phone at all. Driver has to stop on a truck stop. He has to fax it to him. So he has, and as well directions. There was no like a GPS thing back then. So he had to fax them directions, addresses, and everything he might need, because he's not gonna be able to call you if he needs anything else, unless like a shipper or receiver allows him to use a phone.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, it was hard. Even dispatchers did not have maps like Google Maps. They used to search through the large book with maps and streets and all of that, even the New York City and all of that. So he had to go bit by bit and write down manually those directions. Nowadays, you go to truckrouter.com, you can print out directions in 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's I remember when I was driving That's what we had to do, and then you would write down everything they tell you. You have to
Mhm.
write down. When I started, actually, I had a laptop, and Microsoft Streets and Trips were a very good software for maps. And they had a few versions, and then you would update each year, and it comes on a CD. And then I would just put a laptop. You can buy a laptop stand for a truck, and just put it in between the seats.
Yeah.
Screw it down to the floor. And actually, my brother is still using that in his truck.
Oh, really?
Yeah, his laptop, and it's really professional and safe and secure and legal. I mean, you are not nowadays. You can't use it while you're driving, but back then they had no rules. You can just put a laptop there and put in
Oh,
the address.
wow.
And I was way ahead of other drivers at that time, and that's why I never ever bought a GPS unit when they came out, because they were so tiny and small. And on a laptop screen, you can see everything much better. You can zoom out, like look at the whole city, look at the whole state or the country for the whole route.
Yeah.
It was much easier, and I never bought a GPS unit. And then I slowly started using Google Maps on my phone, because they were like they had the satellite images, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
part. But we are not uh, people right now. The dispatchers and truck drivers, we are so fortunate to live in these times, because
Yeah.
everything is much easier nowadays.
Yeah. It is
So
much easier, definitely.
back to the original question, when you were starting as a dispatcher, when you were adapting, and even nowadays, people will have worries about how to find a load, how to talk to the driver, but they don't realize that big part of that is negotiation, because
Yeah.
what makes you a good dispatcher is not just being able to send the information, to communicate with the driver, to know the geography, but to actually be able to book the best paying loads possible. So you're kind of like a salesman. You have to know the
Yeah.
sales tactics.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was weird when I started. I couldn't believe it was done like that. I've never imagined it being done like that. So imagined it like, I don't know, you get email, you take a load, that's it, basically. I did not imagine any negotiation and anything like that.
Yeah, yeah. So sorry, I'm speaking to drivers. You have,
It's okay.
even when you're recording. All right. So what uh, what are some challenges of working from home? Not just because people will always say good things, like like when you say working from home, it automatically means something good, right? Like you
Yeah,
don't have a boss looking over your shoulder, you don't have to travel, you can work in clothes, comfortable clothes.
yeah.
But what are some good and bad sides? Like, how did you adapt to that?
The good sides is that you already mentioned that you're at home, you can work in any clothes you want. You basically wake up and sit in front of the PC and you're done. You don't have to go outside, especially if it's like snowstorm. You don't have to clean it up, clean the car, turn the car on, and all of that. So you basically don't have to do any of that. But there are bad things, especially like you don't have anybody to talk to unless you talk to them over the phone. But it's not like I used to work in an office as well, and I'm working from home now. But I miss those times when we kind of I used to smoke cigarettes before. I don't smoke anymore. But when I started working as a dispatcher, I used to smoke. So we would go outside to a balcony every like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes just to smoke a cigarette and talk about anything basically. Now you have nobody to talk to basically all day until you call a driver if you have a driver that wants to talk to you about something that's not work. But otherwise, other than that, you have nobody to talk to until your wife comes home from work or something like that. The other bad thing is if you have a small house, small apartment, whatever you say over the phone, you're gonna be heard from your spouse, from your kids, from maybe even your neighbors. Kind of not perfect scenario, especially when you want to open a window to get fresh air or something. And whenever I talk to the driver, I speak with the broker or something like that, somebody else can hear me from over the road. So I'm always kind of closed. My doors are closed, my windows is closed, and kind of claustrophobic at times. But you still have more like freedom. If you don't have anything to do next 5 minutes, you go to the living room, you take a glass of water, you eat something, you and all of that. But also the bad side in that, you get fat pretty quickly because you have that access to food. So and it's cheaper. You don't have to pay for the restaurant food. You don't have to order anything, but it's not that healthy. And the other bad thing I would say about that is you lose conception, because if you go to work to separate office, you have conception that you're going somewhere, that you have to go somewhere, you're going to work, you feel like you're going to work, whether you like it or not. But this way, work becomes your home. And if you start hating your work, you start hating your home and the basically room you're working in. And you're always kind of, you start get depressive about that, gets in your mind. If there's like power outage in the neighborhood, you're done. You can't work. You can't do anything. Same goes for internet and all of those things. But there is certainly good things, but there is certainly bad things about it.
Especially if you're a workaholic.
Yeah,
um, you want to finish things. You don't want to leave until you're finished. And especially if you like what you're doing, like I
yeah,
do. I find myself sitting in this chair. I mean, not right now. I'm in the office. I'm not at home, but still, I'm by myself. I'm by myself. I have
yep,
office with two rooms, and this part of the building, there's really no one here. I'm the only one in like there's
nice.
like 7, 8 offices, and I'm by myself. There is no one. I can't. I go out in the hallway. There's no one there. you know, and that's why I like it, because I can record these
Yeah,
videos, and I don't have to worry about noises or them hearing me and like thinking, who is he talking to?
yeah,
Um, but sometimes, like when I have my watch on, it will tell me like time to get up. You've been sitting for 3 hours, and it's
yeah.
like 3 hours.
It's like
But
that quick.
yeah, and when I work from home, I like it because I have the privilege of you know working from home or in the office whenever I want, whenever I feel like. And I try to uh, set my schedule that way. Like if I have to do something, it can only be done at my home computer, like because I edit my videos at my home computer. Then I stay at home that day and do that and other things. But when someone has, I have to meet a driver or I have to go somewhere and finish something, I will go to the work. And I think that's the best option, best scenario. Like this, they call it hybrid nowadays. So just like
Yeah,
work few days from home, work few days from the office or whatever you're doing. Doesn't have to be in an office. So that way you can keep that sanity, like you said, especially like you said, if you don't like your work, because that's an
yeah.
interesting point. I never thought about that. You know,
Yeah, the thing you already mentioned, if you do like your work, and you will find yourself working many more hours a day than you're supposed to, than you're used to before. Because if you work in an office, you leave the office, all you have is your cell phone. You receive an email, you might not see it right away, or things like that. You might not be able to call somebody and help him. You can just tell him, hey, you can try calling yourself, try calling a broker to get a pickup number or something. But if you're at home, it's always you. You basically, whenever something happens, whenever something is needed, whenever you see a new email, you're not gonna read it from the cell phone. You're gonna go back in your office room, turn the PC on, read it. If needs
yeah,
to be replied, you're gonna reply it and all of that. So
yeah,
basically, you're always working. There's no like 9 to 5 time.
yeah.
You're gonna always be.
What when this first started, this trend, after the COVID started, and then a lot of people were working from home because they had to. And I
Yep.
remember we did the same thing. And I noticed that some of these dispatchers were not working from home. Like they were officially working, but they're not. Like, you call them and he's sleeping, or he's
Yeah.
taking a shower,
Exactly.
and I'm like, you can't do that. You're at work. Well, no, but I'm at home. Well, yes, but we still have work to do. And I was the owner of the company, the co-owner at that time, so I was the boss, and I was like, no, you can't do that. But nowadays, people are like trying to put that into the schedule. Like, if they go out for a break, then they would instead take a shower or take a longer meal, homemade meal. You
Yeah.
can use your own restroom as opposed to share it with other people. So those are some
Yeah.
good things. But if you are in the office, you have a schedule. Like, you work 9 to 5, 8 to 3, whatever it is, and that's how we operate. Your lunch is at noon, and you have to take it whether you want or not. Your break is like 15-minute breaks is now you have to go out. So it makes you go out and do those things, even though you really don't have to, but it just
Yeah.
gives you that discipline. So that's a big, and people don't talk about that a lot. So,
Yeah, that's a big deal. When you start working from home, you're gonna see that you lose discipline because you're not feeling forced. You're basically not giving your body to adapt. Your body and your mind subconsciously, they know they're at home, and you're trying to do something. You're trying to make them think that you need to do something. And from the if you're like 25 years old, your brain knows for 25 years since I was born, I did not have to work from home. If I'm home, I'm relaxed. That's hard part, like to get in tune and still stay disciplined. That's I would say that's the hardest part, just to have discipline. If nobody's watching you, controlling you, uh, watching if you have moved your mouse. If you did not move a mouse for 5 minutes, they're gonna call you, hey, what are you doing, or something like that. Even then, if they're not watching you, it's if you're working for yourself, it's still hard to get adapted to that and stay disciplined in
yeah,
some instances. But after a while, after I would say after a year or something, you get used to it and
yeah.
gets
You need
normal.
time. You need time, definitely. I remember when I started, sometimes, like, you have things to do around the house, and you're like, oh, well, everyone's covered, everything is finished. I'm just going to go out and finish this project. And then drivers start calling you, brokers start calling, and you're like juggling with tools and like that. Yeah, no, I go back. So then you gotta, okay, well, this is my schedule. This is how I work, and no way around it. And you also have to teach your family, like, if you have a spouse or children, that you are there, but you are officially not there. They can't just
Yep.
come in and tell you, hey, do this now, because, well, you're at home, why can't you do it? Well, I can maybe do it this time, but if it becomes a habit, it gets in the way of working,
Yeah,
and it's just you have to teach yourself and others that you're working. But I would still choose working from home over working from the office. That's me. Some people
I
may be
would as
different.
well.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about? I wanted to ask you this. You are good with um electronics and computers, things like that, with software. Um, I like to think that I'm good with that as well. I mean, that's certain things. I'm not good at everything, but a lot of people are not. And when they first start working from home as a dispatcher, they have to learn about many new programs, especially if they're working
Yeah.
from abroad. It's sometimes you have to use the VPN to hide your IP address, or to change it. Uh, or like here in the United States, everything is you can buy everything you need, and everything is pretty much affordable. There's a lot of options. You can buy a monitor, a computer, a microphone if you needed, a camera, cables, softwares. But in other parts of the world, it doesn't work like that. It's not that
Yeah.
easy. So how do you, as a dispatcher that has to have all these things functioning properly, even internet connections, like sometimes it can be spotty. Uh, but you need the internet. How do you explain to drivers that, like, yeah, I lost my internet for 2 days? Things like, how do you
Yeah.
manage all those challenges, especially when you're working from abroad?
Yeah, I mean, equipment-wise, basically you need keyboard, mouse, monitor, PC. That's relatively easy to find. But if you need anything special, more special than that, if you want a widescreen monitor, because I live in a small city, it's not easy to get to that. You have to order it. They have to ship it from like 200 miles away, and you have to wait a day or two for it to arrive. Then, if it's broken, if it breaks down in a month or two, you basically have no way to return it. It's not like USA, you just can return whatever you receive, you can return right away. You don't even have to like test it out. If you don't like it, you can return. That's not the case here. Uh, and that's kind of issue. I like to buy stuff in person in places I can get to easily and fast. In case I need to replace it, I need to anything like that, I can do it quickly. But whenever you need something special, you're gonna have to order it, and that way you lose any kind of warranty. Basically, it's gets complicated from there on. Uh, for example, if you need special camera or something like that, better one, you're gonna you're gonna pay for it more than the United States most likely, and you don't gonna have like many options like. United States, you can go to Amazon, you can go Best Buy, you can go any like electronic store, they're gonna have them. But here, it's not the case. And
Right.
the internet wise, it actually I'm pretty satisfied with my connection so far. And I used to live in different apartments and I had different ISPs, so that's internet service provider. But they used to be good for me, every single one of them. I didn't have any like major issues that I don't have internet for like 3, 4, 5 hours. That never basically happened to me. If I don't have an internet connection, it's like for a minute or two, cuts me off from a phone call with a driver or something like that. But I call him back. I say, hey, it's up to the connection. I just lost you there, and I keep talking to him.
What do you think about adapting to this kind of job? Not just working from home or working from the office, but generally in trucking industry, no matter if you're a dispatcher or doing something else for a trucking company, and your whole life you've been doing something else, like a nurse or a
Yeah.
construction worker, someone that works in factory. And what do you, because you've done other jobs before this, and I have done other jobs before this as well. So what do you think, if someone is thinking about starting to dispatch and they're kind of worried, how will they adapt to this industry? Will they do okay? Will they figure it out? Will they miss their old work? What have been your experiences when it comes to
Yeah,
that?
of course. When you talk about that, of course, it's gonna be different. It's gonna be weird at the beginning, and it's gonna be hard for sure. Especially if you start working for yourself, you find yourself some carriers and you want to work with them, and you have no basically. If you don't have experience, it's gonna be harder. Like in any profession, if you don't have experience, you start working, especially if you don't have anybody to teach you. So you're going on your own. It's different when you take a course, like a good course that's gonna teach you eh, from the beginning to the end, basically from the terminology all the way to the end, how to deal with drivers and all of that. But it's different when you start, you don't know anything. You're gonna have some mistakes. You're gonna probably regret doing that first few months, maybe even 6 months, something like that. But after that, you will get used to it, and if you give enough of yourself into it, you're gonna make it for sure. Like any other job, if you give yourself enough into it, you're gonna make it. You're gonna adapt to it. You will find new ways to make your work easier. You're gonna always learn something. Uh, if you did know something for 2, 3 years, you used to work as a dispatcher for 2, 3 years, you didn't know something. Just by talking to other dispatchers that you might know, or you might find on YouTube or something, you will find some things that you didn't know about, and it's gonna make your work a lot easier.
So did you have any personal struggles when it comes to that, changing the career? Do you have any examples of how you were able to adapt to this new job and new way of doing business? Because it's a lot, it's different. Like now you're constantly on the phone, you're talking to people that you never saw in your life,
Yeah.
and then even for you, you have to use a different language, but that comes with
Yep.
time. It just comes naturally. Do you
Yep.
have anything to share, with
Yeah,
your
I do actually. I used to, like I said, I used to unload trucks and do things like that before. That job was paying okay. It was good. It's not bad. I would say it's good. But when I came to work as a dispatcher, it was so much struggle for me. I didn't do well at all. I was not good at it at all. I knew how to use computers, like Microsoft Word, Excel, and all of that, spreadsheets, websites. I knew how to fix if internet is down for some reason and it's not actually up to the company that provides internet. It's actually up to you if you have like multiple switches. I used to work in an office. I used to work on that basically to fix all of that. And I used to show some things to those dispatchers in first couple of days since I arrived there that they didn't know. They did not know they can copy and paste using Control and C and all of that. So they used mouse to copy and paste. It's kind of painfully slow. It was like painfully. It was painful to watch them do that. So I had to show them those like shortcuts, how to do this, how to do that. It's easier this way. They actually did not have, the email signature on the bottom because you get email. They just make you an email. They leave it like empty. They don't even put a phone number down below, and it's empty. I showed them how to do that. Just it's easier for you. So whenever you ask for a load over email, nobody has to reply back 2 or 3 times to ask you for details for like MC number, phone number, your name, and all of that. It makes your work a lot easier if you use right tools. But when I started, I worked for 6 months. It was actually worse than my previous job. It was paying worse. But I was learning. I couldn't like argue. I was learning. I wasn't doing good, but they were not doing good learning as well. So it was like sit there and watch what they do and just help them with boring tasks like update Java board. I was doing updating Java board for 6 months. It was painfully. Um, it was basically the thing that nobody wants to do. It doesn't matter. Anybody can do that. Uh, Anybody can update Java board. It's basically just put the driver in where he picked up, where he delivers, and all of that. That anybody can do that. That's a boring thing. I wanted to learn how to do what they do, and I had so much passion into doing it, into learning how to do it, and eventually to become as good, if not better than them. And I worked for 8 years. When I came over there, some people already have had 8 years of experience before I came over there. So they were well ahead of me. But they came from the time when there was no GPS, there was no phone, there was no navigations, there was no load boards as we have them today, and all of that. So we were not that far apart. We were far apart on the negotiation thing. And what I did to learn the negotiation thing, because they used to send me rate confirmations to my email, and I would open that rate confirmation, read through it, and update it to the driver board. And while I was doing that, I figured I could basically write down city and state, where does it pick up, and city and state, where it does it deliver, and approximate how heavy it is. By doing that and writing exact mileage and the rate, I was aiming to teach myself what kind of rates I can get from what place. If the load goes from Wisconsin or Illinois, I figured it was kind of same area, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Midwest. It's always kind of same. Going to Texas, I would, if he gets like $2 a mile, I write down $2 a mile. I made a spreadsheet that calculates itself, and I was doing that for 6 months. I had so many of those. It was unbelievable. But I did not have to learn as supposed people think they can learn this state pays this much and it's always like that. No, it's not. It's changing. You can't learn that. I was doing that for 6 months, then I actually figured out it's not that useful until you start dispatching yourself. So one day I just came to the office. I said I couldn't do this anymore. I called the boss. I said, uh, if you plan for me to do this updating thing and all of that, I'm not gonna do it. Like, this is boring. I used to get paid more in the last work I had, and they give me trucks. I did not ask for better paycheck. I never did. Actually, I did later in the working career, but at the beginning, I asked, "Give me work. Give me a truck. I want to learn something. I can't learn if I'm looking. I have to try it myself eventually." And I did, and I screwed up. So the first load I took for that guy, I actually screwed up something. I can't remember what was that. The guy was from Alabama, but they actually gave me a tricky guy. Nobody's gonna, when you're a rookie in some work, you're gonna get worst worst things to do. You're gonna get,
Yeah.
if there's anything that nobody wants to do, you're gonna do it because you're rookie. You need to show that you can do those things, and eventually you can get to the position that you don't have to. But I got the driver that kind of didn't want to work. He was lazy and all of that, and I had to deal with him. But I actually did not make any mistakes. I just took a load that it takes a really good driver to make it on time. But that driver was not that one. So it's not my mistake, it's his mistake. But I was supposed to know that driver will not make that on time, and all the problems that arise will be on me. So it was painful for me to learn all of that, but I had like fixed goal. I'm gonna do it, and that's it. I did not have any other plans. I did not want to do anything else except that. I was always trying to learn, find new things, find things and ways to do it faster, more efficient, and better. So there's that company teach me how to dispatch. I teach them how to do it more efficiently. So we're
Yeah.
kind of even.
Uh, Sounds like your boss or whoever was in charge of that training and your setup knew what they were doing, because I feel like had he not done that to you, you would not have been uh, a very good dispatcher right now. Not just a dispatcher, but a person and with work ethics and humble. If I still think I'm very conservative, and I still feel like everyone has to go through a process,
Yeah,
especially when they're new to uh, working industry. Like, you finish your school and then you start working, and then there's a lot of young people who feel like they're entitled to something just because they finished a good school. There is still a
yeah,
process that you have to go through, and that process is not 2 days.
yeah,
That process is a very long time, because it seems like what you were doing at that time look like sounds like an early version of Chat GPT. Like you were collecting data and
yeah,
analyzing it and putting it together, and then when you started dispatching or working with drivers, you appreciated the fact that that you got that far, and you got taught the basics by looking at others. And I still think it's the best way of learning is by looking at others and being in that environment where they can share experiences with you. And if you have a question, you can ask them. If you do something wrong, then they can point you to that and tell you, hey, next time do it that way. So that's the best way of learning.
yeah,
Nowadays, a lot of people don't have that privilege, and they are finding different ways of learning, like reading and watching videos on YouTube and
yeah,
other ways of learning. But that's the best way, and I'm glad. And I think it made you a very good, productive person that you are now. So that it's a good way that you had to struggle like that, I
yeah.
think.
Yeah, I do appreciate it now. I did not appreciate it as it was happening, but I do appreciate it now. That's always with anything else in life. Some things you do not appreciate until time passes, and after a year or two or 5, 10 years, you appreciate those things that happen to you. Anything bad that happens to you today is gonna make you a better person tomorrow,
Yeah,
in one
yeah,
or more ways,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah. You learned it the hard way. I mean, I think that's the
Yeah,
best way to learn. So
I think
what
that's the only way to learn properly.
the only way?
Because if you learn and if you do everything right from the beginning, you're not gonna find any kind of failure points. You're not gonna have any mistakes. Somebody is gonna teach you every single step along the way, but you need to feel that pressure when you do make a mistake. You need to feel that you are responsible for something. You might be able in some companies, some bigger companies, get to work. Somebody is gonna work only on teaching you. They're not gonna have any other job. They're just gonna teach you. You're gonna teach everything perfectly if you're a good student and if you want to listen and learn. But if you never face failure and problems, you will never basically learn anything until you get to the problem. So that
Yeah,
was that was with me also. When I was in office, I was learning dispatching and all of that. Whenever problem happens, truck and driver have a flat tire. I would go, hey, what to do? I would go to other coworkers, hey, what I do now? He has a flat tire. What can I do now? And he's late. He needs a pickup number. He needs this. He needs that. And even though I would be able to figure that out myself after a couple of times asking them, but the thing that they were actually right beside of me all the time, that actually kept me asking them for stuff that I would actually figure out myself if I just had to. If I have to figure it out myself, that actually happened to me when I started working from home. So I have nobody around me. I can't like nudge anybody like, hey, what I do now? I can't. I can call them on the phone, but it takes a long time to explain all of that, and we're not person in person. I can't go and show him my screen and email, whatever. It's harder. So it made me do those things that I actually did not do before. They used to do it with me if it's a bigger problem, and I was a rookie. They just took it over. They just took a phone. They called the shipper receiver. They took it over. But until I got to the situation that I have to take care of that, it did not get to me how responsible you are in this work. When you work for a company that has more trucks, like for a carrier that has 20, 30, 50, 100 trucks. But if you work for yourself for a couple of carriers, I think it's different. Any of those problems that they might have, they can call you to try to make you to help them, to ask you to help them, but they can deal with them themselves as well. And
okay.
that's not the case if you have company drivers. Company has 100 trucks. You have a lot of company drivers. Those guys do not care a single bit. Whatever goes wrong in the truck, on the load, on the road, they're gonna call you. They're gonna call the boss. They're gonna stop and do this until you fix the problem, because your boss will not. He's gonna call you. Hey, what's going on? Do this and that. Call him, fix it. And when you call him to ask, hey, what can I do here? This is the situation. This. He's gonna say, I don't know. You're the dispatcher. I'm not the dispatcher. Even though he used to be a dispatcher a long time ago. He used to be a truck driver a long time ago. But he just doesn't want to deal with that. That's why he has me. That's why I'm there. He wants to take that stress off of him, put it on me, and you need to learn. Basically, nobody tells you what to do in the situation. Then you go with the next logical solution, which is if you have problem with the receiver or the shipper, try to find their phone number. Rate confirmation doesn't have it. Find it on Google Maps. Find it somewhere. Get a hold of anybody. Get a hold of, like, you're basically kind of pulling the solutions out of the sleeve. You didn't even know that you can do it until you do it, until you have to do it. That's kind of adrenaline and stress and all of that makes you do things that you didn't even know and didn't even think of doing before.
Yeah,
So
you didn't even know you had it in you. So that's a phrase. Well, a thing that my kids hate the most when I tell them. when they can't figure out something, and I try to teach them to, figure it out themselves. And they like, Dad, how do I do this? Like, I can't do it. How do I do it? And I say, snađi. And they hate it. It means in
Yeah.
Bosnian, figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
Like, figure it out. Why do you need? I'm not always gonna be here, and I know you can do it. Just figure it out yourself. And then that's basically it. Uh,
Yeah.
so, do you think I have this shirt that says dispatcher moving trucks with one finger? And do you think, like, because we are in that position to affect the lives of drivers, especially with our decisions, and for good or for bad, do you think a dispatcher should always be aware of that power that they unconsciously hold over them? Like, for
Yeah.
example, you give them wrong directions, or some dispatchers would withhold some information, like, I'm not going to say a lie, but like a load picks up at a certain time, but they don't tell it to the driver. And do you think a good dispatcher should not misuse that power, because they can affect not just the workday, but the life of that driver in so many ways, and they don't even realize it. I mean, how do you explain that to someone, especially like young guys who just come here, they never seen a truck in their life,
Yeah.
they never been on the
And
road, they don't
that's
know how it is, and they're like, just say some random stuff, and they have no idea how that's gonna impact the driver.
Yeah, that's a really good question actually. I used to teach a lot of guys after I was able to work on myself after like 5 years or so. I was able to teach new rookies that came to the company that actually did not know anything about this dispatching, same as it was with me. But it was kind of fresh to me. I had fresh memories of what I would like that my teacher does. So I was doing all of that and even more. And the issue with that actually was, especially with younger people, like early 20s and early and mid 20s, they don't have responsibility that work required, most of them, because they come to work and they're not aware of actually what they are doing. When you take a minute and think about it, if you have like 5 trucks that you're dispatching, there's literally 5 huge, the biggest on-road vehicles that are going all over the United States, and it all depends on you. Uh, you come to the work, that driver gets to delivery. He doesn't know what his next destination is. He never knows where he's gonna end up, unless you have pre-booked something a day earlier. He never knows where he's gonna end up, especially with the company drivers that do not like go only a certain direction back and forth. It was kind of hard to imagine. I wouldn't be able to drive a truck. I really can't. It's kind of the only job in the world besides being a doctor, like doing surgeries and stuff. I can't do that, and driving a truck. That's a huge responsibility. It's not about that. It's actually about being away and not being certain of outcome. You're not certain where you're gonna end up, especially when the market is bad and you're kind of risking it before holidays. You're going out on the road just the day before holiday. That's risky because there's no many loads, and you want to go straight back home to be at home at holiday. And you're putting yourself and your dispatcher at the bad spot. How he's gonna do it, if he's gonna do it, and if he does make it, what you're gonna do, and all of that. But with new guys that come to the office, I used to learn them, teach them. Uh, they're missing that perspective that actually it's not just truck. It's not just a point on the screen. That truck. It's not just a truck number. It's actually a real living human being in that truck, being on the road for between 7 and like 30 days in some instances. He's only in that truck and he's driving, and he doesn't know where he's gonna end up. And all depends on you. You are basically routing that person where he's gonna go. It's up to you. You have load board open. You can see two loads. In example, you see two loads um, going separate directions, and they are good in their ways. So one load is good in the way it's going to good area or something. Other load is good because it's paying good. It's not going to best area. You are able to choose between those two. Do you want to take easier path, less money, or you want to take more money and harder path for him? And since he's a company driver, it's your decision. You're making decision for him. And you never know. You might like end up having that driver on the route where he's gonna end up in an accident, for example. And you might think, hey, what if I didn't take that load? If I just took the other load going to other direction, he wouldn't be there now. He wouldn't have those problems. So you need to kind of um, it's hard when you work as a dispatcher and you basically do not see those trucks. You are not able to get to the company's yard and see all those trucks and see how it all works and how actually big those are. And they can't move around like a car can. And you especially need to be aware of that when sending them directions and when sometimes when taking loads, but you never know where it actually goes to until you get reconfirmation. You see the company is too small to be able to arrive to it with semi truck and 53-foot trailer. So you need to have that. But most of the guys, new guys, don't have that. They just come to work. Okay, I found the load. That's not my problem. You can't get to the pickup. You can't get to the dock. That's not my problem. I did my work. But if you actually want to be a good one, you have to deal with all of that and have all of that in mind all the time.
So some people would say, like, especially younger generations need to somehow be taught common sense. I don't think you
Yeah.
can teach someone that, but you can teach them how to prioritize, especially when it comes to that issue. Like, what's the priority? Like, you have to learn, and I'm sure there is a way to teach someone that don't know, especially when you're planning. If you have your own business, if you're planning things, even in your household budget, with your family, and then here with drivers, like, if the priority is to bring the driver back home, no matter why, if it's a holiday or they have a doctor's appointment, that's the priority. The priority is not to book the highest paying load possible. Unless this is an owner operator who wants it, then it's up to them, it's their decision. But like you said, like company drivers, or even if you have owner operators, and some dispatchers would not tell them the real picture. They would not tell them about the load that was getting closer to home, just to fill their quotas, or feel better,
Yeah,
or
actually,
brag,
there's another reason why they would do that. Their bosses. We were
because
not,
they make them.
yeah, we were not required when we used to work there. We could not send the driver home until the boss says we can send him home, or even close to home. For example, he lives in St. Louis. You can't send him to Texas from Wisconsin because he's gonna go by home. And for some reason, only known to him, he doesn't want him to go that route. You can keep him something that goes to Georgia, for example, goes somewhere else and keep him south and just not close to home until he says that. And even though driver gets calls me every day, hey bro, find me a load home, find me a load home, find me a load home. He's not gonna get a load home until boss says yes. And they text me, they call me, they start basically threatening they're gonna leave the truck and leave the company altogether. And then I go to the boss. Then sometimes he says, okay, get him a load to home or something like that. But most of the times he's gonna just say, get him load to my shop, to yard, so he can leave a truck here and he can go. He just didn't care. If he says no home, you can't send him home. Doesn't matter if it's a holiday, weekend, anything. If he wants to work as a company driver, that was like in that company, he needs to work at least 6 days of the week in total in a month. He says something that you have to tell to the driver. And I call that a dirty work. He doesn't want to call that driver himself, even though he can. Call him, hey, I can't send you home. This is the reason, this and that. He lets me do that. He doesn't want to do that, so I have to call that driver. For example, he's at home today and it's holiday coming in 2 3 days or something. He wants him on road. He wants him to work, and he doesn't want him at home through that holiday, even though driver wants to be at home. So I have to basically lie to the driver because he told me so. Tell him he's gonna get home. You're gonna get him a load out and back. Then you're not gonna do that. Basically, you're gonna take a load away from home. Then when he's away from home, he has no way of getting home. Then you can basically do whatever. You can take load anywhere. Just lie to him. There's no loads home or something like that. He's a company driver. He doesn't know. He doesn't see you, or even if he does see it, he can't do anything about that. Then you have to keep him running, even over the holidays. So that was my experience when I was working. So kind
It's
of all dirty work you had to do.
when you think about it, you could argue that these owners, company owners, were doing that because they don't know how it is to be on the road. But some of them actually were drivers, and then even
Yeah.
when they started their companies, they still did that to other
These
drivers. You
these
know,
guys they used to drive a truck for at least
yeah.
5 years.
Well, I think I like to think that I'm different because I used to drive, but I guess that's probably not the reason why I do this.
Yeah.
Like my driver can be 500 miles away from home, and they need to be home tomorrow, like for any reason, because I promised them I would bring them home empty,
Yeah.
and I would pay them for the miles because I pay for them odometer miles. I'm I'm just I couldn't, you know, I couldn't live like that. I don't need all the money in the world. The reason why I have my own company is because I want to stay at home, not be away from my family and work for myself, and then have some kind of financial independence. I don't want to be rich. I mean, I would like to be rich. Why not? But that's not my main point that drives me, and that's why most of my drivers have been with me for like 7 8 years or more, from back when I started, my own businesses. Um,
Yeah.
so it's, I don't know. I had a boss like that too when I first started dispatching. I was a company driver, and then I started dispatching in that same company, and I was the oldest one. Like they had like 4 or 5 dispatchers, and they were all young, and but they were experienced, and I was the oldest one, and he asked me to deal with things like that, like after hours phone calls, someone breaks
Yeah.
down on the road, something that's more responsible. But they were better dispatchers than I was, and I was just amazed at some of those things. Like, it they didn't do it to that extent, but I hear of others doing it, and it didn't feel right. And then I
Yeah.
started driving again. I just couldn't take that atmosphere of constantly having to I'm not gonna say a lie, but like you have to tell the brokers what they want to hear in order
Yeah.
to get a load, and then you have to tell the drivers something that makes them go out, stay on the road longer. And not all drivers are like, there are drivers out there who do some bad things too, because
Yeah. For
it's
sure.
not all. So but both sides have to work it out, like you have to
Yeah.
find a balance. Best thing is to I'd rather have 10 good drivers than 100 drivers that are so, or
Yeah.
half of them are not that great. With 10 good drivers, you can do really well,
Yeah.
and these drivers are responsible. They would tell you on time when something has to be fixed. They would do their side of the work, like be on time for the pickup and delivery if they can, take care of the equipment, and stay out. Like if we have a deal that you're staying out for 5 days, you stay out for 5 days. If you have a deal that you stay out for 2 weeks, you stay out for 2 weeks. But then the longer they stay out, the longer you have to give them off when they come home.
Yeah.
And when you tell them you're going to stay home for 3 5 days, 7 days, you make sure they stay home at 5 days, not call them after 3 days. Hey, this load just popped out and I don't have anyone. And it's very important that you go out.
Yeah.
And I've heard it,
Yeah.
and you can still hear it all the time. So you have to find a balance between, when you're a business owner, between uh, making your company profitable and treating your employees well. So
Yeah.
that's very simple. Very simple.
It's I would say it's very simple, but like you said, it's most of the time it's not the case. So you have to do that dirty work, even in the instances where uh, he calls me, okay, do that. So send him away from home and keep him away, even though you promise him he's gonna be back home next load. Uh, I used to do sometimes. If I'm good with the driver, if I have good relationship with him, I worked with him for a couple of years already. I know he's good. He didn't do anything bad. I just decide not to do that. There were instances that he's a company driver. I can send him anywhere. Then if I have to lie, I will lie to the boss. Basically, I am forced to lie to the driver who did nothing wrong. Then I choose to lie to the boss because I am able to, since he's a company driver, nobody calls me every single day to check where the drivers are, especially in the company with 100 trucks. I choose to send that driver back home because he wants to. Why not? If I have to lie, I'm going to lie to the boss. There was no other loads. This load just came up. You understand? I had to do those things. And in the instances when I was starting, I was a new guy, then I was not sure what to do. Then I call boss, say, okay, this is the option. I can send him home for this rate, this much, and I can send him away for this much. And if he likes the other rate for $100 more, he's gonna say you can send him there. But when I take the low driver doesn't want it, then I call him back. Then he says, deal with that. Like, it's your problem. It's not my problem. Deal with that. That's basically what he says. Then I decide to cancel that load because driver doesn't want to do it. I have nobody else for that load. I take the load back home after like 5 or 6 days when he's able to sit at the PC and see all the loads that have been done. Then he calls me, hey, why is this load so cheap? I called you back. I asked you what I was supposed to do. I gave you a few options that I had, and you did not want to say anything. You just said deal it with it yourself, basically in the rude way. So then you call me after 5 or 6 days to complain why is this load not paying like ridiculous amount of rates. It's always even if in the market that pays $2 a mile, you get $3.5 mile load. He's gonna call you and ask why is this not paying better. He knows the market. He just likes to put that pressure and stress on you over and over again. And those dirty work, uh, having to basically alter the truth, I would say that way. It's not always a lie. You just alter the truth to make a driver to do something and work. And that pressure and the problems that he was putting on us and still putting on the people that work still there, and that was like not worth for me. There's no money that's it worth for me. It's just costs me my health, mental health, physical health, my life, and all of that because I can't go home rest assured that everything that I have done is okay because some driver can mess something up. Company driver uh, gets loaded, everything okay. My part is done. He's loaded. He's on the way. I am away from the office. I have no service to that phone that we were using that time because we didn't have those cell phones, something. Those phones were like boxy things sitting on the table, old school phones. I was not able to call him even if I wanted to. And if anything happens along that way, not my fault at all. He's gonna call me tomorrow, say, "Hey, what did you do? And what's this? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that?" Even if you do everything perfectly, there's no such thing as you did something perfectly for him. There's no such thing. It's always your mistake. So I couldn't do it anymore, and I was surprised when I came when I actually met you, and when I realized there is other people that do the same thing but differently. And it's not differently because he doesn't have driving experience or something like that, because you both do. It's just because you're a better person. It's about personality. And paying exact mileage from odometer, I've never seen that. I never heard anybody doing that. They're actually cutting on every single mile, even from the deadhead miles. If they can cut a few miles off, they're gonna do it. If you cut 1 mile from the driver's paycheck, that is paid 50 cents a mile. What did you save? You saved like 50 cents. What does that mean to you if you have millions? That's weird part. I don't like, if I was in the situation, if I am ever in the situation like that, I'll never do that. It's just cheaping out on everything, pushing people too hard. Everybody who works for him, it's not me, just the dispatcher. He's pushing drivers through me, so I'm doing that for him. And everybody's feeling uh, forced to do something that he does not have to, or does not feel like doing, or does not even think that it's his uh, job description to do. And I didn't like that. It's just too much stress. I always thought dispatching was stressful, but it's actually not. I didn't figure that out until I met you. I really didn't. I mean,
I
it is. It has its ups and downs, especially when market is bad. You have nothing to take, but you can't kill yourself and pull your hair out because there's nothing to take out there. There will be something. If not, like now in an hour, maybe something comes up. You can't like end your life because there's no loads. And in that company, I always had a feeling if you don't find a load or something like that in a timely manner, good paying load, you're dead. It was just a feeling.
it's the end. It's the end of the world.
Yeah, exactly.
It's it depends on a lot of on company atmosphere. Um, I had so many things, like we've been doing this for a long time. I just you know I
Yeah,
have so many things to like ask you and add. I don't even know where to start. Uh, when it comes to the business owners in trucking industry, it looks like what you have been explaining just now. It's there are a lot of companies like that. It's anywhere you go, people, like you talk to people that work here or abroad or remotely, most of them will tell you similar stories.
yeah.
Like when I listen to you, and I spoke to someone, recently or 2 years ago, it's always the same. Like everyone is speaking about this same person. Like, who is this boss? But it's like a lot of companies are doing that, and they don't have to. I
Of
mean,
course.
it's like a fear of losing out. That I don't know what
Fear of
drives
missing
them,
out.
of missing out. Yeah, they're gonna miss a great paying load. I don't know. My like depends, like what your like when you're the way you live your life, you should implement that in your company, and in your company culture as well. Like, you don't want something to happen to your kids or to your spouse or to your parents or to you. Then you should just have that mindset, and then say, hey, like, if I don't want this to happen to them, then I don't want this to happen
Yeah,
to the guy, because you have some kind of power over your employee. I mean, even owner operator that has their own authority, their own company, and they, you just dispatch them, or they drive under your authority. Like, you have some control over them, over their finances, over their week, how much they're going to make. And you should treat that power, like they put their trust in you, and you're misusing that power for your own gain. So with me personally, um I don't know, like I said, I don't want to get rich. I just want to try to be honest. And I thought for a long time that's what was driving me. Like, oh yeah, I used to be a driver, and that's why I'm doing this. Like, I don't want the same thing to happen to them. But I guess it's not the case with everyone.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. Well, do you think like dispatching, working in a company, in a trucking company as a dispatcher, where you have like five other dispatchers or 20 other dispatchers, and you have a boss that's constantly, over you?
Mhm.
Do you think like dispatching trucks on your own in your own business, like what we're trying to do, dispatching owner
Mhm.
operators, is less stressful because of the fact that you don't have someone constantly telling you what to do, and you don't necessarily agree with the ways they're doing things, and you are able to make your own rules for your own company? Do you think that's the reason why we are less stressful as opposed when working that
Yeah.
kind of environment?
Yes, actually, when you stop working as employee and when you start any kind of business, whether it's a dispatching or anything else on your own, you're gonna actually work more and harder because you quit 9 to 5 job just to work 24/7, and that's actually true in any category you can find and any business you start. You quit 9 to 5 to work 24/7, because if you work for yourself, there's no phone call that you shouldn't take and you can't take, whether it's 1 in the morning and all of that. But regarding to, I wouldn't say it's not. I don't have authority issues. If there's a boss, I'm okay with that. I used to work in other companies. I did not have a single problem regarding that. But I don't have those authority issues. I'm fine if somebody calls me, tells me what to do, tells me what not to do. But I'm fine with that as long as that's in a nice way. If you understand what I say, in a nice way,
Well,
that's okay, but not in a blaming way. Because I did not leave because I hated authority. I just left because I hated being blamed why the wind blows today. It just felt like that. If the wind blows, if there's a snow on the road, that's my fault.
it's the company atmosphere. Like, depends
Yeah,
on a lot on the boss or on the bosses. And like, I used to deliver to different companies, and drivers are still telling me those stories. Like, you go, like when you go to a company, to a shipper, that everyone is rude there, like you don't like going there. But then you go to a different place next day, and everyone is so nice. Like, so
yeah,
what's the difference? Like, why is everyone so treating you like a person here, and over there they're treating you like trash? And they hate not just you, they hate their work, they hate themselves. Is
yeah,
it because of the bosses, or the company rules, or they're underpaid, or what's the issue? That and then now you have that privilege of creating that atmosphere yourself. If you're starting your own
yeah,
business, like you're working for yourself, and then you may have employees, but then you take that, you carry it over, that to them, like, and they see it, and they start acting like you, and they like it, because until yesterday they worked in a toxic environment, and now, like,
yeah,
there's like, well, what's going on? What's this? Does this even exist? And then
yeah.
everyone, they're doing the same work. They're profitable. They're just doing it in a better way.
Yeah, but I would argue they are less profitable, probably because nobody's pushing workers that much, and they're paying more adequately. If you're paying more adequately, you have less revenue, arguably. In some instances, that's gonna get you more revenue because your workers will be happy and will be more productive.
Yeah, but it's you have short run versus long run. I would argue
Yeah,
that in the short run they are more profitable than I am, but in the long run,
yeah,
I think I will be. Because I'm making friends. I'm keeping good relationships with everyone that
yeah,
worked for me, unless there was some kind of something. But mostly, the majority, like, you have a good relationship with them. They left on good terms. You left a good impression on them, and down the road, you might, you know pick the fruits from these seeds that
Yeah.
you planted now, as opposed to the other guys. Like you go out on the street and like you shortcutted this guy and you cheated on that guy, you fought with that
Yeah.
guy, and then it will come back. There is karma,
Yeah.
it will come back. Like with the YouTube channel, this YouTube channel, like in the beginning, and it's still, the majority of the content is free, and we like to share our advices honestly, and people like that, and people will come back. you know Maybe it's not going to be a monetary gain for you, but maybe down the road, because I'm meeting so many great people that are like CEOs,
Yeah.
and very very successful, and you're networking with them, and down the road, hopefully, you can grow and make something big. That's the way I like to think.
Yeah.
you know
I I agree with you. Yeah, I like that way.
I mean, it's like, and then even like when you go at night to go to sleep, to bed, like, I'm when you think that, like, I I'm not running away from anyone, or
Yeah.
like, I didn't, because you deep down, back in your conscience, that you did something
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah. You
You
have
know,
clean consciousness.
oh
You
yeah,
don't have to worry about that.
yeah. So that, like, I can better sleep. I can, be more relaxed, and still claim that this job is not that stressful. Because I see a lot of comments on YouTube. They're like, well, be honest. I am honest. It's not stressful unless you have a big problem. Of course, something big
Yeah.
happens. But that's the case with anything in life, not just your job. It can be with your friends, your family, anything. Something big happens, and it's a lot of stress. And then any kind of business, especially if the times are bad, like in any business, when the times are good, everyone is happy. The bosses
Yeah.
are happy, the owners are happy, their wives are happy, their kids are
Yeah.
happy, you're happy, your wife is happy. But when the bad times come, then you see, like the real persons uh, behind it.
Yeah. Yeah. We used to. We actually, if you like work as a dispatcher for that company, you have like 5 trucks, for example, and you see some kind of eventually this week rates are becoming lower. They don't want to pay as much they used to pay before. Uh, but you're not sure because you don't know how much the other dispatchers are taking those lanes for. Like maybe they're doing better. It was always kind of competition between us. Who's gonna get a better load? Look what I got. Look what this is and all of that. But general rule of thumb, when the market starts turning from good to bad was when the boss starts calling in and asking why is this not paying good. That's the general. It was always happening. It was like a Swiss clock. He was always on time.
Yeah.
If 1 week goes lower, he sees few dollars less in his bank account than he's used to see. He looks for a problem. If he sees everybody's working, mostly everybody, then it has to be market. Okay, let me push them more.
Yeah, it's a dispatcher.
It's
Well,
actually they're just doing that to squeeze every single dollar out of the market, out of the workers, and out of dispatchers. Workers, I'm saying drivers. Every single dollar. It's when I say single, it's mean dollar. If it's dollar more, he is going to die. Even though that dollar, he will never see it because he's got
yeah.
millions.
Yeah, they people like that just feel better, just knowing that they did everything they could. Like they got the most out of it. Like if there is something happened and you were not able to make that extra $100, then you feel bad. Like, man, I could have gotten $100 more for that, and I didn't. Like, so what? Who cares? But then, like you said, it's a matter of cents, not hundreds
Yeah,
of dollars. But it's just
definitely.
fascinating when you think about it. You know, some people want to start this dispatching business, and the biggest struggle that they have is probably finding owner operators that want to work with them, that they can
Yeah.
dispatch, because you gotta have customers. You can learn
Hmm.
skills, by watching others, by being trained. It doesn't matter, like you learn because the way everyone else learned, and you know how to do your job. But now you need actual drivers, so that's the biggest challenge.
Yep.
in dispatching industry. But to me, it still seems less stressful, even though now you're a business owner. You have to worry about paying your bills, finding new customers, managing the business, paying taxes, and all that. As opposed when you're just a dispatcher in a trucking company, and all you do is just look for loads, and you get your salary, and that's it. But it still seems that being a dispatcher and working for someone else is way, way more stressful because of the things you were just telling us about
Yeah,
than having your own business, finding your own drivers, and then on top of that, looking for loads. That's the way I
yeah, for
think.
sure. I want just to compare my experience dispatching before, every single day dispatching before in that company, to if somebody, for example, who's watching your channel and is gonna watch this video all the way to the end, and he might recognize some of those things in their own company. For example, somebody else is working at the Google. I'm just saying, Google, they're doing something, programming something, working on some projects, and they have a deadline. So they are able to do whatever they want, but they have a deadline. They have more than enough time to do that, and most of them are gonna leave it like until last few days, like almost everybody does, and they're gonna rush last few days, especially the last day, to do what they're supposed to do, and stress accumulates from that because you could have done that earlier, you just didn't because your own reasons. The issue here was when I was working, I had a feeling of deadline every single day. Deadline is okay. It like keeps you awake, it gives you a boost of performance to finish the project you're working on. If it lasts like up to like 5 days, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 days until you're done with it, then you're kind of relaxed. Over here, it was deadline every single day for past 8 years. That was the feeling. Basically, every day is feeling how I'm gonna do it, if I'm gonna find a good enough load, and what's gonna happen. I don't want him to call me, even though whenever he calls me, he's just gonna complain. I can say, okay, yes, whatever. He's gonna hang up after 2 minutes, but I don't like that. There's no reason to do that, to put that kind of pressure on me. So I put pressure on myself to do as best as I can, but still was not enough ever to avoid that. So it was kind of working under deadline every single day. Working like deadline is today and you have to do this today, or you're done. There's no other way.
Maybe even every single hour, not just every day, because you have like 10, 20 drivers, and some of
Yeah,
them like their hours are expiring, or they're empty and waiting for a load, or they have to be somewhere at a certain time. So you just like constantly in a rush to do that. But
yeah,
that maybe has to do with dispatchers having, because I spoke to someone here locally a few days ago. He's a dispatcher. He's been dispatching for a long time for a trucking company. He says he has 17 trucks right now to cover in that company, because the company has like 80 trucks and he covers 17. And imagine, especially in these market times, how stressful that might
yeah,
be, to book loads from a load board and cover 17 trucks. And it's, I don't know, you have to think long term. You can do that for, you can do 20 trucks, but for how long, and then at what cost?
yeah. Of course, 20 trucks is it's like 17 trucks. I can handle it. I have experience, but if somebody else is gonna do truck and trace, so broker calls me for updates, I don't have time for that. Somebody else has to do that thing, and somebody else has to dispatch the drivers their addresses, figure the pickup numbers if they need those things. Just leave me to book loads. My job is to book loads, and I can handle up to 20 with that. It's just when you get like 17 trucks, there's 17 different possibilities that anybody can call you every single minute. And out of minute, you have like 60 seconds. And out of those 16 seconds, you got 17 possible seconds that your phone is going to ring and waste your time that you have to book loads. So search for loads, call brokers, negotiate, sign the rate confirmations and all that.
Yeah,
So
one of those trucks has a
it's
problem, and you have to work
you're
on it.
done.
Yeah, you're done. And then if two of them have a problem, then it's like someone else is gonna
And
have to
it
take
is
over.
usually like that.
Yeah, something goes. Yeah. If everything works perfect, then it's fine.
Yeah.
Like you find loads, you dispatch them, they do their job, you do your job, and it's fine. But the minute problems start, then it's a problem. And that's why it's very stressful, because everyone is putting pressure on you. The driver is putting a pressure to solve his problem. The boss is putting the pressure to find loads for company drivers. Then you have owner operators calling you, like, hey, there are no
Yeah.
loads. A broker is like calling, what's going on with that
Yeah.
guy?
I wanted to say stress also comes not just from 20 drivers, but it also comes. There was people within the company that used to work as a dispatcher over there longer than I was. They were there before I came there. They're still there after I left. But those guys do not have that much stress as much as I did, and 90% of dispatchers in the company. You know why? Because those people did not care. They are not responsible. They just don't care. Like whatever you call me, uh, like complain about something. Boss calls them, complain about something. They're just gonna counter him. Sometimes or just they're gonna ignore it, like go along with the day. Like, but I actually. I would like to be able to do that. I was not that kind of person. I was not able to do that, but that was the most efficient way to survive there. Just don't care. They don't care about you. Why would you care? Why would you answer the phone after 4? Why would you send an email after 4? Help the driver, do anything. When I leave the office, when they leave the office, phone to the mute or off, or computer is totally off. There's no way to get a hold of them if you're not calling them directly to their private cell phones, and they're fine. They're like doing fine. They're just not. Part of the stress is from your own responsibility for the work you're doing. That's part of the stress.
Well, I see potential, you know, self-employed or entrepreneur or business owner in a person like the way you behave, because you want something to succeed, to be successful. And then if you were to start something on your own, then it like the way you're doing things, it has to be successful. But as opposed to the other guys, like they don't care, you know
Yeah.
then you're just gonna stay all your life working for someone else and just do an average job. And that's the highest you can do, because you're not responsible, you don't care. So
Yeah.
that yeah. Okay, so I think we touched on many topics here, many
Yeah.
issues, and it was great having this conversation. Like you learn things yourself when you talk to someone, this way, and
Of course.
it's nice to share this with others. And I hope to do this soon again. And I thank you for
Me-
your input and your honesty, and for being with me all this time. And we, together started many things, and hopefully we'll do more things in future. And thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome and thank you.
Okay.